this video here, you know, it's hard for me to talk about. I'm talking about Frankie Edgar and whether or not he should retire. And then more importantly, in broader terms, about MMA fighters and when they should retire and when they shouldn't and what keeps them around. And, you know, that allure, that rush, that feeling that you get from fighting that keeps people around. Of course, there's money as well. But it's a dangerous sport, and I know firsthand. Frankie Edgar at the weekend went out there, fought Marlon Chito Vera. He's a contender in the bantamweight division. And he got knocked out again, right? He got knocked out in the third round, but he looked good. He looked really good. But most fighters that are good, like a Frankie Edgar or whoever, they look really good until they get knocked out. But what happens is the chin's got an expiry date. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that Frankie Edgar needs to retire. I have too much respect for him to do that. Only he can come to that decision. But I'd be very surprised if that's not a conversation that takes place in his household between he and his wife in private, you know. He's 40 years old. He's in a weight class now that depends on speed and reflexes and instincts. And they're some of the first things to go. Obviously, this man's had a great career, a Hall of Fame career without doubt. He fought at 155, he was the champ. He fought at 45, he was a contender. And he's fighting at 35 now, and he's still a contender. As I say, and he's just the nicest guy. Frank Edgar's the nicest guy on the planet, you know what I mean? So I'm not going to sit here, right, with my bloody YouTube setup and saying that a man like Frank Edgar should retire. I'm just wondering, should he retire? You know, and the answer is probably yes. You know, I mean, he's done everything there is to do in the sport. But then that got me thinking, you know, why don't we retire? You know, and I stuck around far too long as well. You know, I mean, obviously, everyone knows now, you know, this is a fake eye. And I lost that eye in 2013, you know, but I continued to fight with one eye. And I was told by many doctors, Michael, what are you doing? You're absolutely crazy. If you lose your other eye, you're going to be blind. If you get a detached retina in your other eye, you're going to be blind. And I still threw caution to the wind and I still went out there and fought. That's because at that time, that was all I had. That was who I was. That was my identity, you know. And looking back for me, in hindsight, that was one of the best things that ever happened to me. Because when you're a fighter, you're all in. Right? This is all you can. And you have to be all in. It's you're probably going to lose fights, you know, but unfortunately, even if you are all in, you can't do it forever. And at some point, the chin has an expiry date. Now, I'm not saying Frankie Edgar's reached that point yet, but he might have reached that point. You know, he had never been knocked out. That's how tough Frankie Edgar is. He'd never been knocked out until he got knocked out against Brian Ortega. Since then, including that one, he's been knocked out 4 times, of course, Saturday night, you know. And as I say, I don't know Frankie's situation. He's no doubt, he's a smart guy. He's probably got money in the bank. But he's still competing, and because nobody wants to go out on a loss. You know, that's part of the thing. You know, when I lost to Gastelum, I didn't want to retire there, even though I knew I should. And by the way, my doctors always said to me, they said, Michael, if anything happens to your bad eye, you're going to go blind. But I still continued to fight. Nobody gives a fuck about a washed-up ex-fighter. So any fighters see this, you have to use your platform whilst you have one. All right, because when you retire, you sit around and you think, okay, and you're scratching your head, what am I going to do now? You know, for me, when my retina detached and I ultimately lost vision in my right eye, I was still fighting. I was still able to scratch and claw my way to the octagon. I was like, what am I going to do? Because at some point, I'm going to run out of good luck. At some point, I'm going to be forced to retire. So I started working on Fox Sports, started a podcast, put more attention into my acting career, which was kind of crazy because nobody wants a one-eye fucked up guy, but I still managed to land some roles. You know, it was only a few years later I got this prosthetic lens, which now looks good, you know, but back then my eye used to look mangled. You know, a lot of great fighters stick around too long, and it's sad to see. And I don't say that sad as in, oh, it's sad, he's being sad. I mean, it's a shame. Chuck Liddell came out of retirement and had that boxing match against Tito Ortiz for Golden Boy. That was so sad to see. You know, what else did we see? Oh, Evander Holyfield, just recently against Vitor Belfort. You know, I mean, that was kind of a shame to see. This is an incredibly tough sport, right? And we put our heart and soul into it. But it's a beautiful sport. It's a great sport. It's the best sport on the planet, and I love it. And I would not change a thing, ever. You know, people always say to me, you know, because I have got lots of injuries, but I'd say, so fucking what? You know, it made me who I am today. And I'm very happy with who I am today.